And you know what's ironic or perhaps understandable is that some of the strongest supporters of the Jewish community here and Israelis have been Iranians themselves who understand what it's like to be brutalized by a radical Islamic regime. And now we're seeing a lot of Jewish groups support, in turn, the rights of the Iranian people against this regime.
Look, absolutely. You know, this Iranian regime of Ayatollah Khamenei is the single greatest threat to world peace. It is not only a threat to the Middle East, to the region, exporting terror, death, destruction, but it is also one of the most brutally repressive regimes, denying their own people basic rights. They spend billions of dollars on exporting weapons and rockets and terror across the world, but yet they can't spend a fraction of that money on their own people's welfare, on access to water, on their basic economic rights, on allowing women to walk freely across the streets. So if you
without a hijab.
Without a hijab. So those that profess to care about human rights at the weekly rallies condemning Israel for every ill they can possibly imagine, they're nowhere to be heard, and their silence really is deafening.
Yeah, it speaks volumes too. Let's talk about the Adelaide Writers' Week, which has this afternoon been cancelled entirely amid the growing fallout from its dumping of anti-Israel academic Randa Abdel Fattah from next month's program. The festival's board has now also been dissolved following today's resignation of director Louise Adler. Now, her resignation followed the walkout of more than 180 scheduled participants and half the board. In a statement, the Adelaide Festival, which oversees the Writers' Week, said, as a board, we took this action out of respect for a community experiencing the pain from a devastating event, that community being the Jewish community and the event being Bondi. Instead, this decision has created more division, and for that, we express our sincere apologies. Abdel Fattah, though, Arsen, has rejected this apology, and she's called the decision to cancel her racist, and she's engaged lawyers. What do you make of this whole implosion of the Adelaide Writers' Week?
Look, it's terribly sad, the situation that we've arrived at. Writers' festivals are meant to be, forums for free speech, exchange of ideas. But sadly, over the years, they've become hubs where anti-Semitism has become so widespread and entrenched. Now, it should not have come to this, but it has, and partly, in large part anyway, over years of platforming writers who, instead of exchanging in ideas and robust debate, have actually sowed discord and disunity and hateful language targeted specifically against the Jewish community. Now, obviously, I wish it didn't have to come to this, but it has, and at a time when we should be coming together to heal, especially as we still mourn the 15 people who were murdered in the Bondi attack, this really wasn't a time to only pour more fuel on this division.
Well, I think Abdel Fattah should never have been given an invite in the first place. After the past 2 years, she's just poured fuel on the fire of anti-Semitism. She posted a picture of a Palestinian paraglider the day of October 7, and it hasn't stopped since. So it's a wonder she was invited. They should have known this could happen, but there you go. Look, I mentioned earlier how you were among the victims of last month's horrific terror attack in Bondi, Arsen. Now some of the other victims and their families are speaking out. Shana Gutnick, whose father, Reuben Morrison, was killed as he bravely tried to protect others by throwing bricks at one of the gunmen. She's called for the federal government to set up a new compensation scheme for the relatives of those murdered in the attack. Currently, close relatives of those killed, they're eligible for up to $75,000 in payments, but that's from the New South Wales government in a joint package with the federal one. And this figure was called ridiculous by another victim's relative. Do you think up to $75,000 is enough for the relatives, close relatives of those who were killed in this horrific attack?
Look, I actually came to the studio from Bondi and went back to the scene where this happened, where I myself was shot. Look, there's no number that can ever do justice to the pain, the trauma that we as a community suffered. Certainly not for those who lost loved ones, and for those, including like myself, that were injured, that were shot, and that are in a long recovery process. It's not just the physical scars, it's also the emotional scars, and it's not also just us, it's our family members and it's our community, and that process will be long-term, and it will require not only medical bills, it will require all sorts of specialists because it's a long process, and there is no number that will adequately do that justice. But certainly, any help from the government is, I think, welcome.
Yeah, and many people might not realise that a lot of those victims were themselves lived in housing commission. They're not well off. They could use the support from the government. So let's hope that they get more of what they think they need.
Sure.
Arsen Ostrovsky, thank you so much, and good to see you doing well.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.